but there's a much bigger picture behind the curtain of what's going on geopolitically. It's not just drug trafficking. It's not just, Hezbollah, which is a big part of it. What it is we have adversaries in our Western hemisphere. We have Chinese, Russian, and Iranian influence just south of our border, which is a big deal.
The opinions of the guests and host are their own and do not represent the opinions of Ironclad, the Border Patrol, or the Department of Homeland Security.
Welcome to Borderland Narcosis, an Ironclad original and presented by Phorm Supplements. Go get your Phorm Supplements at firstform.com/borderland. My next guest is Nick Valencia, who is a former IDF soldier, former United States Army soldier, and now counterterrorist expert. You came to my attention on social media, and you started giving a little bit of intel on some of the stuff going down in South America, Venezuela, Maduro, things like that. And I was like, man, this guy has some information. I'd love to have him on the show. I have a lot of notes in here, things like, the perspective of the counterterrorism, especially when you've seen what happens in Israel and Hamas there, also going down to South America, watching that. But for most of all, I'd love to hear what you think the American people need to know. Not only American people, we have viewers from everywhere, but what do people need to know about some of the stuff going down in South America that we should be aware of? I don't think people are very knowledgeable on that subject right now and are just seeing what the news is telling us.
Yeah, so to be honest, I wasn't too focused on South America. My main thing is jihadi networks in the Middle East and North Africa. And so that's been my main focus for the last few years. I'm was a researcher over at the International Institute for Counterterrorism, and that's here in Israel. And so I've been focusing a lot on Hezbollah as well. Now, once Donald Trump and the administration designated them as a foreign terrorist organization, I was like, okay, let me put that under my umbrella and look into it. So for the last week, I've been doing like a crash course on it. I've already known that Hezbollah has significant influence in Venezuela and South America in general. So I was able to, that's kind of where I started out at. I'm like, okay, let me look at what ties Hezbollah has with Maduro and the Venezuelan government, along with the IRGC as well. And that's pretty significant. And so I was able to kind of, look at different family clans that are in the Venezuelan government right now that are also Hezbollah operatives. So I'm just like mapping out their network and putting the pieces together, looking at their financial pipelines along with their political alignments. And I mean, the evidence is pretty overwhelming how much influence Iran has in Venezuela, along with, Russia and China as well.
Would you be able to share some of those names and some of the things that you've discovered?
Right. Yeah, I could do that. I have it written down right here.
Yeah, it's a lot of interesting stuff going down in Venezuela right now. And so there's a lot of connection people don't realize of like the CCP, Russia, and South America, where we have to be really aware of as a country, And so I'm curious to see what you've been able to kind of put together.
So pretty much as far as I'm tracking right now, you have Hezbollah operatives in the government, like I stated. There's evidence of them doing training operations on Margarita Island, which is just like right off the coastline of Venezuela. And PVSA, the oil company, the state-aligned oil company to Venezuela right now, is their main funding source. I also want to note that oil company that's their main funding source right now is falling apart. So their workers are fleeing. The sanctions are dismantling them. They're not able to modernize their equipment and industry. And so right now it's looking pretty bad. But you also have to remember that Hezbollah is doing their drug trafficking in the tri-border area and throughout, with the Venezuelan Cartel de los Soles, which is funny. Have you heard of Cartel de los Soles before this?
Yes.
You have. So I haven't, so I had to look into them and see their alignment with the IRGC and Hezbollah. And they also are working with the Sinaloa cartel as well, doing the drug trafficking, which, by the way, so my main focus on this was, okay, if I'm going to bring it under my umbrella, I have to make it fit the definition of terrorism, right? So if I have to do that, and I'm not really too familiar with the cartels and stuff like that, mostly, like I said, jihadi networks. And so everybody knows, or for the most part, that a terrorist is defined as a non-state actor that is, inflicts violence and intimidation among the civilian population in order to meet their political, religious, or ideological goals. I couldn't find that with Cartel de las Soles. I found that more with Sinaloa cartel, but not so much with Cartel de las Soles. But I did find, like I said, Maduro's alignment with Hezbollah, which by definition, if you were funding or providing material support to a terrorist organization, that would put you under the same category as a terrorist. And were you tracking Hezbollah's operations prior to being designated as an FTO?
I've heard that they were working down there. I wasn't sure exactly in details. So, there was just kind of passing conversations like, yeah, Hezbollah's down in South America, and what's that look like, And so journalists maybe have mentioned it. Some of their people have been able to give them some information, but no one like on your level of expertise on the subject.
Right. So the main thing, so this is the thing about Hezbollah, right? For those who don't know, Hezbollah is an Iranian proxy, and Iran's main goal is to, uphold their government and stay in power. And they use Hezbollah as a force in South America. So, for example, they did a bombing on a Jewish organization in 1992 in Argentina, and they continue to do that. So they use Hezbollah as a kind of like a revenge tactic. And also, so with all these sanctions going on with Iran, they use Hezbollah also as a drug trafficking organization. So they're able to get their funding and kind of slide under the whole sanctions thing. And so they could build up their military at the same time.
How big is Hezbollah in South America, would you assume? Or what have you been able to kind of identify?
Hezbollah has a significant footprint in South America. They're originally based out of Lebanon in the 1980s. Yeah. That's when they were formed. But they're all over the globe. It's not just South America. But for South America, I don't know exactly their exact number. It's kind of off and on. I don't think there's even like a set number of Hezbollah operatives. A lot of the times, so what the Venezuelan government will do as well is they'll also give them new identities and passports and documentation so they could kind of fly under the radar a lot of the times.
Why would this be a concern for America at all?
So this is the thing that I was trying to put out there so people could kind of understand. The message that the United States government is putting out there is that we are countering narco traffic organizations like Cartel de las Soles and whoever, right? And that is true. We are doing that. But there's a much bigger picture behind the curtain of what's going on geopolitically. It's not just drug trafficking. It's not just, Hezbollah, which is a big part of it. What it is we have adversaries in our Western hemisphere. We have Chinese, Russian, and Iranian influence just south of our border, which is a big deal. And so I think, and Marco Rubio just said today, actually, for the first time, finally, he said, Venezuela is linked with Iran's IRGC, which is internationally recognized as a terrorist organization along with Hezbollah. And so we started off with an FTO, designated them as a foreign terrorist organization. But I think pretty soon here, we should at least designate Venezuela as a state sponsor for terrorism, which would be like a sledgehammer compared to FTO, because that would increase sanctions like crazy, and they would have far less of a influence in the area. And I also read today that Russia is pulling its citizens out of Venezuela, which is a huge signal, especially after the Wickoff meeting in Russia, stating that something could happen in the near future with that as well. But having, adversaries in the Southern Hemisphere is pretty a big deal. Like if we did that, like next to China or Russia, they would be raising alarms as well.
Well, what I think is interesting is that how long has this been happening? In my head is what I'm thinking is, well, if there's Hezbollah down south, and just recently, the Biden administration had kind of an open border kind of policy for a while. Yeah. the influx of illegal immigration that happened for those many years. Now we're turning around and we're seeing different kinds of, Islamic attacks, like Islamic extremist attacks that are happening on our soil.
Yeah.
My fear is that there's some kind of connection to, we've heard this, right? We've heard this on the news of things like sleeper cells or whatnot. And so now seeing that Hezbollah has got a heavy presence down south, it almost feels like they were staging there, knowing that our borders were kind of weak at a time, and that would help them gain influx into America, gaining a more prominent position for if there is some kind of, I don't know what you would say, some kind of, I wouldn't say an attack on America, but some kind of strategic infiltration slash, it's just strategic positioning, essentially, if you will.
Well, Venezuela is basically Iran's forward operating base. That's what they're using it for. And
Damn.
Hezbollah is in the United States. There are Hezbollah operatives in the United States. I mean, look at Dearborn. They have a very significant Shia population and very pro-Hezbollah. I think they even named a street after a Hezbollah operative. So the Hezbollah in the United States, Hezbollah operatives in the United States is a real thing, and it is a real threat. Hezbollah is used to conduct terror attacks as a revenge. Now, so the main thing is this, right? If we could counter Hezbollah's or Iran's presence in Venezuela, that would help us significantly with the drug trafficking that's coming into the United States, the human trafficking going on as well, and thwarting terrorism. Because the reason why they're there, they're also, and I don't want to get just stuck on Hezbollah as well, because like China has also signal intelligence hubs in Cuba and Venezuela as well. They have 30 plus ports in Latin America that they own. Russia as well has huge influence. And so it's them working together. I mean, we sanction Iran and Russia all the time. And so they're using, Hezbollah and IRGC in South America to get their funding. But I think Russia less, obviously, but Iran more.
So you think what's happening right now with America and Venezuela is a good thing in the sense of, the Trump administration really posturing and positioning themselves to kind of hopefully slowly kind of control and dismantle that?
Yeah. So I don't think the Trump administration is going to come out and say the bigger geopolitical picture, because I don't think Americans could actually, digest that type of information, because they're going to be like, World War, or what the hell, like, global powers kind of going at it. So when we say stuff like, when the U.S. government says stuff like we're countering narco traffickers in the Caribbean, Americans could understand that, because I've had friends that have died from fentanyl. A lot of Americans know, at least everybody I know knows somebody who has died from fentanyl. And so that is a real issue in the United States, and people know that. People know that. It's not some like conspiracy theory. Everyone knows that for a fact. And so that will sit better with the American people for them to understand. And we are doing that. That is the thing. But like I said, there's a lot more going on behind the curtain with Iranian influence in our in our Western Hemisphere, southern border. And it's just going to keep getting worse. I mean, we can't have that like south of our border. That's an absolute no-go.
Dangerous. Yeah. That's a bad thing for us in the safety of our country to have that kind of foreign nefarious entities that close to us within proximity. If you're looking for a recovery shake that actually does its job, check out Formula One from First Phorm. It's a rapid digesting whey protein isolate made for post-workout recovery. That means that it gets into your system fast to help the muscles repair and cut down soreness. It mixes ultra smooth, it's easy on your stomach, and it tastes legit. All the flavors are good, but for me, Cinnamon Toast Crunch is hands down the best one. Plus, it's NSF certified for sport and Informed Choice certified, so you know it's clean. First Phorm is giving free shipping on orders over $100, and if you don't love it, they'll give you your full refund. Hit the link in the description and grab Cinnamon Toast Crunch Formula One today. Out here on Borderland, we talk a lot about cartels and traffickers, but some threats hit closer to home. Take the CJ&G timeshare scam we covered. People get scammed out of thousands. Their personal info stolen and sold online. Your name, your address, phone numbers, Even your family's info can end up in the wrong hands, putting you at risk for identity theft, scams, or worse. I value having control over my personal data, and that is why I've teamed up with Delete Me. Like the experts we've talked to on Borderland, who go after bad actors, Delete Me works to remove your personal info from hundreds of people search and data broker sites. They do it continuously, securely, and without outsourcing. Real privacy advisors are available if you need help. For over 15 years, Delete Me has been leading the fight to protect personally identifiable information for individuals and businesses' employees. They verify your info is accurate on these sites before removing it, cutting down unnecessary exposure. It's very simple. Just create an account, fill in your basic information on the dashboard, and Delete Me takes care of the rest. You'll receive a report about what was removed in about a week. So take control of your personal info. Go to joindeleteme.com/ironclad and use coupon code Ironclad or scan the QR code to get started. One of the few services that actually keep your information out of the wrong hands. Let me ask you, what are some things that you think America needs to do to kind of take action on this? What are some things you'd like to see the Trump administration take action on? I've heard the last person I interviewed said there's a potential that that'll be the World War III kind of thing. Like that's going to set off a lot. I mean, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, that's just what I think the Americans would think. So they know exactly what the Trump administration is doing. They, as in Russia, China, and Iran, they're well aware of what the main goal is to get rid of that type of influence, or at least fracture it. But if the Trump administration, for example, were to come out and say that out loud, then those authoritarian governments would have to react and they have to escalate it because they don't want to look weak in front of their people. They're not democracies like us. So they have to react and like I said, escalate if Trump came out and just made that public. Now, Marco Rubio did bring that up today, but he didn't specifically say that is why we're doing this. But behind closed doors at a geopolitical level, that is one of the main reasons. And what I believe the Trump administration should do going forward is map out these Hezbollah networks and do precise, airstrikes or sabotage operations, clandestine operations, just to like mitigate any and all influence in that area.
Now you're sitting here in Israel currently right now, correct?
Right.
So I don't know how to word this. I don't want to sound like a complete idiot, but
there you go.
Is it in the best interest of even Israel that we start taking action on this? Is there a concern for Israel that if we don't?
Well, I wouldn't say directly. Israel could help a lot as far as intelligence goes. Israel's well aware of Hezbollah's networks in South America because they have conducted terrorist attacks on Jewish populations in South America multiple times. And so Israel has a lot of intelligence, and I guarantee is sharing that intelligence with the American government. As far as Hezbollah in Lebanon, and they also have like a little branch in Iraq. But as far as the Middle East goes, I mean, Israel has done a pretty good job of dismantling their leadership in the Middle East with the beeper attack and the airstrikes. They've hit them pretty hard, and especially with the Iranian leadership as well during that 12-day war, which was, that one was pretty intense. I was here for the bombings of that in Haifa, and I got hit pretty hard. My apartment got hit pretty hard. It threw me against my apartment wall, so that was crazy. But yeah.
Jeez almighty. Well, let me ask you, what is the biggest threat that we have as Americans when you look at Venezuela? Is the Hezbollah ties? Is the infiltration of Hezbollah into South America? Is that our biggest threat, do you think personally? Or is it the Cartel de los Soles? Is that the ones that we need to worry about? What do you think?
I say Hezbollah and IRGCs above that. But with the Venezuelan government backing them, they have Iran backing them and the Venezuelan government. That's two states. They have state sponsorships and funding. That's a big issue. That is a huge issue, especially, when they could just reach our southern border in an instant. Absolutely.
I don't see. Well, I'll ask you this after I say this. I don't see that there's a place where someone could come into our country and really attack us like from our shores or whatnot. I think we have a lot of defenses in place that would protect us. The only thing I see is what I've been noticing is someone comes into the country undocumented and is carrying some kind of explosive. That's the thought that we all have when working on the border, right? Or small little outliers that do these little kind of, you know, active shooter scenarios. Those are the small threats that I see happening that are probable, that could happen any day and have been happening. You know, we haven't seen anyone set off some kind of bomb in a quite some time. It's been a lot of, you know, using a vehicle running over people. It's been using, you know, just small arms fire, whatnot. Uh, what are the threats that you see that I'm not thinking of that you believe that could be coming to America?
Muslim Brotherhood's a big one.
Tell me.
So right now, let's look at Europe for example. Right now, there are terrorist attacks all the time happening in Europe. I mean, the Christmas markets in Germany right now, they're putting blockades up there because of the ramming attacks that are happening. I believe it was Sweden who has like the highest number of like explosives going off. Now they say those are like the gangs, but those are the migrants that are coming in, and that's what they're doing. So you have the Muslim Brotherhood memorandum that is even written. They wrote it in 1991, but it's a 100-year plan, and it's pretty much what they're doing, and it's pretty obvious is that they are infiltrating NGOs. So let me ask you, remember October 7th when that went off, and then all of a sudden, all these organizations came out protesting immediately. Some of them were disguised as climate change. And then all of a sudden, there's no more climate change. Now it's the pro-Palestinian movement, pro-Hamas, pro-Hezbollah. In Australia, you saw posters of Khomeini being waved in the protests. And so the Muslim Brotherhood wrote a memorandum in 1991 stating that they don't need to use violence. They don't need to use violence because they'll use our laws against us. So our Constitution says freedom of speech. Perfect. We'll exploit that. We'll say this is all freedom of speech. They'll kind of like they'll blur the lines between, you know, conducting jihad and dawah, which dawah is, you know, getting people to, or for the most part, you know, preaching Islam. But then they also try to convert people like JNIM and the Sahel in Africa. They do that, but they kind of deliver a different message during their dawah to where they're radicalizing their people. As far as the Muslim Brotherhood goes, they're all over the place. I mean, SJP, you have, like I said, climate organizations, NGOs, they'll infiltrate those and then also push a bunch of propaganda to kind of like change and fracture the American society from within. They don't need to bomb. They don't need to do mass shootings or to go against our military. They're already inside and they're in their universities. Qatar is the biggest funder of our universities, along with Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia and Qatar don't get along. Saudi Arabia is not aligned with the Muslim Brotherhood, but Qatar is the biggest funder of the Muslim Brotherhood. And I would say the Muslim Brotherhood by far is the biggest threat to the United States. Absolutely.
Excuse my ignorance here when I ask this, but I've met some very nice Muslim people. So is this more of the extremist views of Muslim faith? Is that what we're talking about here? I'm just not. I'll call myself naive to the subject as much as possible. I served in Iraq and Afghanistan, right? You know, I know there's extremist views and very, you know, religious kind of, I guess, a religious push to fight us Americans. You know what I mean? I get it.
Mhm.
I understand that extremist viewpoint, but when you say Muslim Brotherhood, does that mean the Muslim faith as a whole, or is that just very specific? Because I need to understand that better, and I think the audience might need that as well.
Perfect. Yeah. No, that is my niche right there. So the Muslim Brotherhood is it's not all Muslims. So it's not. I know it sounds like on the surface it sounds nice, Muslim Brotherhood, but it is not. So they were, to give a quick history of it, they were formed in Egypt, and they were kicked out of Egypt because they started to try to overthrow the government and conduct terrorist attacks. and they spread to Europe. And in Europe, they decided, hey, we don't need to fight the Europeans. We could take them, we could take over from the inside. And that's why you had Sharia for UK, Sharia for Belgium. And they were using mosques to pretty much radicalize people, new migrants coming in as well. That was their biggest target, is the new migrants coming in. They would radicalize them, send them to Syria, and then bring them back. So the Muslim Brotherhood is an organization of radical, for the most part, Sunni Islamists. And they have factions everywhere. Now, they also run a bunch of mosques and organizations in the United States and have a lot of influence. I'm not saying all Muslims are part of the Muslim Brotherhood, because they're not. Saudi Arabia does not like the Muslim Brotherhood. They're illegal. They're banned from Saudi Arabia and multiple other countries, especially Egypt as well. And so they're a whole different organization. They're a radical organization, and their entire goal, which they even wrote in their memorandum, is to take over the United States and the West as a whole and indoctrinate. And it's a jihad. It's they're pushing their ideology on the masses. That's their main goal.
Would you also be able to explain for the audience the Sharia law? I've heard a lot. People are nervous about this. I've heard some of the beliefs in that, but are you able to explain that as well? Is that something in your expertise?
The Sharia law, generally, I know I have a good idea of what Sharia law is. So Sharia law is it's an Islamic law, but there's different, I guess you could say, there's different degrees to it. Now Muslims will say, no, there's not. There's Sharia law and that's it. But look at the difference between Saudi Arabia and Syria, for example, right? So it's just a more extreme. So the thing behind it is this, is that Muslims believe there's nothing above Sharia law, God's law. And any type of constitution, any type of U.S. law or law in Europe is not relevant to Sharia law. Sharia law is above everything else, and it could solve everything. That's like the mindset behind it. And so when you had, like I said, Sharia for UK, that's what they're pushing. They're pushing, Sharia law in Europe and in some places in the United States, little pockets. I forgot the city's name in New Jersey, but they're trying to do that there as well. You'll see a conversion of.
They're trying to do that in a city called Frisco, Texas, as well.
They'll have police officers. They'll have their own police force, their own security force, kind of running it, and they'll have their own little community. And whatever happens in there, they won't tell the actual police. They'll just keep it within the community. That's kind of how it starts off. And there's a huge influence there in the UK as well. And Dearborn, from what I've been seeing, is up there as well. You said Frisco, Texas, really? It's going on out there?
Yeah, there's a community that they're projecting to build out there for that reason.
Yeah, I was stationed out in El Paso, Fort Bliss. So it's far away from the...
Far away from there. It's in Dallas area, but it's very interesting. When we talk Hezbollah, do they align with this same ideology?
Yeah, but Hezbollah is Shia. Hezbollah is a Shia organization.
What's the difference between those?
All right, I can do my... So from what I remember, it's that you have Sunni and Shia. Shias believe that, and I'm going to butcher this, I feel like, because I don't have it written down yet right now, but they believe that one of the siblings, might be the cousin of Muhammad, deserved, to be next in place. And then the Sunnis believe somebody else. I can't remember exactly. I don't want to, say something that's wrong on here. And so that was the kind of split. And they have different times of, Ramadan and stuff like that. So there's a little split in the type of beliefs with Shia and Sunni. When you're out here in the Middle East, if you talk to Sunnis and Shias, the Sunnis will say Shias are not real Muslims, and the Shias will say that Sunnis are not real Muslims. So there is a real, difference in that. And Iran is Shia. They have their Houthis that are also Shia, Hezbollah, which is, I found weird because Hamas is Sunni. Hamas is not Shia. And they're funded by Iran as well. So they're using Hamas as a tool to, thwart Zionism or Israel, the Israeli government.
This is all different for us, man, because, on this podcast, we normally talk about just, different cartels and drugs and entities, but this does align with it. It's just a new subject that I want to make sure we're explaining for the audience to kind of understand. But I mean, just to kind of tie it all together, Iran is one of the states that's helping fund Venezuela as they
Yeah.
continue to smuggle drugs and as well as kind of run a corrupt state. And that is also what is helping fund Venezuela do their corrupt kind of work. In Venezuela, excuse me if I miss, but Venezuela essentially is smuggling a lot of drugs to help fund it all.
Yeah, so Venezuela is, like I said, Iran's forward operating base at this point. And they're, they're under the radar of the sanctions. So whenever we put on sanctions on Iran, Hezbollah's operations go up. And Venezuela is right there with them, helping, sponsor them, fund them, using their PDVSA oil company as well to help fund it. And yeah, no, it's a real issue. And it's a real issue. And they're pumping drugs into the United States. An analogy I came up with earlier to kind of like simplify it for people is this. Let's say, Vince, you're in a neighborhood, right? You have your neighborhood, you have your neighbors, you're with your wife, your kids, and one of your neighbors decides to rent out his house to somebody who is straight focused and mission focused on not breaking into your home and killing you and your family, but fracturing your entire family, ruining your marriage, your relationship with your children and everything. That is his main focus. And he's across the street and that's all he cares about. And then he's starting to make friends with your neighbors as well. And he's starting to build a coalition of people who are on the same page as him. Now, wouldn't that bother you? Wouldn't you want that guy gone out of your neighborhood?
Yeah.
And he's also at the same time pushing drugs to your children and poisoning them. So yeah, we don't want that in our neighborhood at all. And that's the easiest way I could simplify it for Americans who can't, grasp the complexity of the geopolitical chessboard is that exactly. And that's exactly what's happening. Some people are like, oh, that's not a big deal. They're just, they're in Venezuela. It's like, no, it's not ending here. It's not at a stalemate. It's going to increase. The drug trafficking is going to increase. The human trafficking is going to increase. And it's a real issue for the United States and our national security.
Dude, I love it, man. I love it. This is very nuanced and different side of Borderland, but it's something that I think is interesting because we've been focusing a lot on Venezuela and no one's really talked about this connection. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I'm saying before I wrap up or anything, is there anything else you want to give to the audience?
Regardless of your political point of view, regardless if you think this is the right thing that we're doing or not, it is important to not jump ship because you're going to see a lot of propaganda, an increase of Venezuelan bots on social media that are pretending to be like, as you saw when X released that thing where that you could show their location. What they're doing is they're creating accounts. So this is very low cost for these types of organizations. And they will pump out thousands of influence bots to change the perception of what's happening. And just be aware, keep your head on the swivel, and just know that there are huge actors at play that are going to try to convince you that, what's going on. They're already claiming genocide in Venezuela. I was watching one of the El Nacional or one of the other Venezuelan media outlets. They're already saying that there was a genocide in Venezuela, which is weird. It hasn't hit the English-speaking people yet, but I saw it in one of their.
They're saying that we're creating. United States is creating a genocide in Venezuela.
I saw that multiple times on multiple people's X accounts, and they have a significant following in Venezuela, so I took that seriously. And so they're gonna flood social media, and even if you, like I said, if you don't agree with this, if you don't agree with the operations, there's a bigger geopolitical risk at play right now, and it's important just to you have to stay. I'm an American. I'm going to support America's decisions regardless. And Russia, China, Venezuela, Iran, they're going to try to influence Americans and the American population to go against the United States and cause an uproar. So it could pressure, the Trump administration to not counter narcotics in the Caribbean. It's going to increase. Like you saw with the Israel-Hamas, immediately, like you can look at the comments section, it's a bunch of bots from Malaysia and Indonesia. The same thing is happening right now, and it's going to just get worse.
If you're into quality gear, you need Tac Pack, a monthly subscription box loaded with tactical gear from the top brands like Battle Arms Development, 9line, 511, and more. You can choose from Tac Pack Standard, $59.95 shipped with $90 to $120 worth of products, or Tac Pack Plus, $139.95 shipped with $240 to $300 worth of products. This September, Tac Pack Plus is stacked with over $330 worth of gear, including Battle Arms Development, 9line, and Next Level Armament. Use code Ironclad at TacPack.com for a free $70 tactical gift, pushing your value past $400. Tac Pack, gear you'll actually use. I want to thank our partners over at Ammo Squared. They've built what they call America's Ammunition Reserve, basically an ammo savings account. You sign up, pick from more than 70 calibers, set your auto buy budget, and either choose a shipping schedule or just let your reserve grow. Over time, your ammo stacks up and is stored for free in a climate-controlled facility in Texas or Idaho until you're ready to ship. No minimums, no extra fees. It works whether you got a small budget or just don't want to drop a few grand at once. Thank you so much, Ammo Square, for providing such a cool service and supporting the show. The PSYOP side of things has been interesting to watch, and how Americans are not really good at deciphering, truth and PSYOP, right? And, very emotionally invested in the direction of the country, which rightfully so, we all should be emotionally invested on where it goes, but emotionally invested so much that they're easily torn, they're easily, I would say, baited into discourse that they just never need to be in, you know what I mean? And so it's like, it's been one of the interesting things on my end as someone who, like I said, understands this subject so well, is to watch how our country's been divided through false narratives and just been pushed and pushed and pushed. So now we're definitely a divided nation, right? It's like you're either left or you're right. And in that sense, it's like, well, if you're left, then you hate everything the administration does right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you're right, you better support it, right? And it's like, there's no questioning either way, left or right. So it's such an interesting time. But what's really fascinating about like this subject that you're talking about to me is that like, this is now where all my worlds collide. I served in the Middle East, right? Trying to dismantle, disrupt, these terrorist organizations from ever coming back to America and ever causing harm to us, to then later serving on America's border, doing my best to hopefully dismantle and disrupt the cartel organizations who are bringing in drugs and human trafficking and everything else. And now they're all colliding, right? Those entities overseas are now getting closer to our borders. They're easily accessible to kind of enter into this country and do whatever they want to do in this nation, right? And there's different sanctioning cities that allow them to kind of welcome with open arms in our own country. And as you said, they're using our own constitution against us, which is it was a very interesting kind of war game play. And now to hear that, Venezuela is partnered with some of these countries that we know do not see us as a friend.
Iran, their main motto, their main chant is death to America, death to Israel, death to the West. And we don't want like that neighborhood analogy I told you. We don't want that on our doorstep. Like we're dealing with it out here in Israel. Believe me, you don't want. I had a ballistic missile hit my apartment. Like I said, I was making coffee, 7 a.m, no sirens or anything. Wow! And I just threw my body. I was like, I'm a grunt, so I was like, yeah, but like people actually got hurt, and it was a real big deal, and it's not fun being on the other side of that. I'm not saying that would happen in the United States, but would be even worse for the United States is being torn from the inside. And just, it's important to like do the research on the Muslim Brotherhood and their goals and their game. So I'll send it over to you, their memorandum. They wrote an entire memorandum, their entire plan, and it's playing out perfectly right now. And but I mean,
it makes me wonder if we need to have more interviews on this subject to kind of better unravel it even more so on the show, since now it is within close proximity to our borders and something we should be concerned about.
Yeah. So when you invited me on, I was like, all right, well, he's like an expert on like, cartels and stuff like that. I was like, I'm all about jihadi networks in the Middle East and North Africa. So I was like doing a crash course on it. I know about Hezbollah's network in South America, but it's so much different. It's so much different from jihadi networks to narco terrorists. It was
Yes. But when they're working together, it's a whole different world that we all need to start to understand.
absolutely, especially because Hezbollah it's a hybrid, non-state actor. They're hybrid, so they'll do whatever they can to make money, and it's also very difficult because during the daytime there'll be a Hezbollah terrorist, during the nighttime there'll be like a teacher or something like that, and with Venezuela it makes it so much more difficult because they will change their identities for them and give them actual like official passports that don't even have their name on it, and so that makes
Yeah.
everything a lot more difficult.
I'm wondering how much of them have already infiltrated also into the Cartel de los Soles, and as well as almost synonymous with the two, where we cannot even tell the difference between one or the other. So earlier you said there were some names that were connection to Hezbollah and as well as Venezuela. Have you been able to find that list?
Yeah, so I found one of the operatives. So his name is Ghazi Nasser al-Din. He's Lebanese, and he is aligned with Hezbollah, and he's and he works. He has a government position in the Venezuelan diplomat arena circle, you could say. And
That's crazy.
and they also have there's other few family tribes and clans that have gone to Venezuela as well. You have to think about it like this. So there's a unit called, I think it's Unit 121, and it's part of the Hezbollah organization, but they're aligned with Quds Force, which Quds Force is the IRGC's external proxy. So what their job is to, bring money back into the Iranian regime from outside. So they'll go to South America, this is like a perfect example, Venezuela, and do illegal gold mining from the Ornic golding arc or gold mine arc, and they'll just do illegal mining. They will do fraudulent paperwork so they could sell to the international, stage. And so, like I said, it's the Quids Force. That's their main job. And Ghazi Nasser al-Din, he's wanted by the United States. There's multiple that are wanted by the United States. That's just one. Tariq El Assami.
These guys are all known terrorists, part of Hezbollah, and have found themselves serving under the Venezuelan political kind of nature, the political space.
Yes, that's what they. So Maduro, and they were there with Chavez too. So it wasn't just under Maduro. They've been there for a few years. I think I read something that they're there way prior to 2006, but 2006 is when they started to really increase their influence out there. And so they were there under Chavez as well, working with him, and then with Maduro, they started getting more influence and funding and legitimacy, you could say, within the Venezuelan government. And yeah, so they have a huge footprint out there, and it is a direct threat to the United States.
Well, Nick, I really appreciate all the information you gave us today, and this is kind of going to open my eyes a little bit more. It's going to make me want to dig down deeper into this rabbit hole. But honestly, Nick, if you ever need the platform again, if there's new information, anything you want to bring to the audience, please do. This is a platform for experts like you to kind of have a bigger footprint and telling us what's going on in the news in this area of terrorist organizations. I mean, the list goes on now. You know what I mean? We're just trying to see what's going on in the world. And this information for me is very fascinating, and it kind of opens my eyes to what's going on down there in Venezuela.
Yeah, it's all linked together. That's the thing. It's like the narrow focus is Cartel de los Soles and Maduro and countering drug trafficking. The bigger picture is the amount of influence from Iran that's chance death to America, and they're using Venezuela as a forward operating base. That is like my main concern as an American. We can't have that. We can't have that at our southern border. Can't.
Thank you for listening to Borderland Narcosis, an Ironclad original presented by First Phorm. Don't forget to check out your First Phorm supplements at firstphorm.com/borderland. See you later.